Welcome to the 359. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Cambridge Analytica became a household name for all the wrong reasons, and now it's dead. The political consulting firm accused of misusing Facebook users' data is shutting down. That was announced yesterday. Alfred, let's get people up to speed in case they didn't already know. What did Cambridge Analytica, what were they accused of doing?
So they are a political consulting firm, and they say that they can profile people based off of like data that they take. Now, a lot of this is supposed to be like public data from like advertisers and things like that. But what had happened with its scandal with Facebook is that they created an app, and they created a bunch of apps actually that were supposed to be like fun quizzes, kind of like, oh, this is your digital life online. This is what song represents who you are, or something like that. And then instead of, only giving them those answers, they would take your answers and then use that to like build a whole profile about you, but not just you, but like all your friends and stuff. And then they would use that data to basically create voter profiles and say, okay, so this person is most likely going to vote if you like target your ads to them in this way and that kind of stuff.
So considering how creepy that sounds, do you think that there was any possibility that they might have been able to hold on, or the fact that all their clients were fleeing, there just potentially wasn't like there was too much heat around it to really,
I think this service
help them
is
survive.
definitely still in demand. If you look at their former CEO, Alexander Nix, he's at a new company now with several other former Cambridge Analytica executives now called Data, and they're pretty much doing the exact same thing. They might not be getting the data illicitly anymore, but I think it was more of a we're going to dump this ship and then jump on another one that does
With a
the
different
exact
name.
same thing, but like
That's
it
too
doesn't
bad.
have as much heat on it as Cambridge Analytica does as a name.
So as far as the 87 million Facebook users that their data was allegedly misused, what happens to that data? What do you think happens
It's unclear right now. A few lawmakers from both the U.S. and the U.K. have told Cambridge Analytica, "Hey, look, you can't delete this data. You have to hold on to it. We don't care that you're not a company anymore. We're still investigating this, so you can't just up and delete all this data." It's unclear whether or not they're going to listen to them. Jury's still out there on where that data is going to end up.
Yeah, the Cambridge Analytica closure came at the same time of the Facebook F8 developer conference. There, the social media company has worked to move forward from the controversy by showing off some of its newest projects. Among them was a VR prototype headset called Half Dome, which promises wider field of vision and improved depth of focus. It sounds like it could help make VR a little bit more immersive, a little bit more like the real world, which I'm obviously all for. That sounds like it could be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, because they announced the Oculus Go yesterday, right? Not yesterday, the
Or
day
that
before
it was
that.
going to be shipping, yeah.
Yeah,
the day
so
before
I'm
then.
confused. I mean, I feel like this one probably looks a lot better than the Oculus Go. I'm just confused why they didn't just put all these features on a product that they already have.
This is still in prototype.
Mm-hmm.
They're still working on it. That's why. And there's also another VR headset that's expected to come out before this one called Santa Cruz.
I think it
So they're-
promises a lot for the future of VR, though. I think like the biggest gripe against it is like things don't really look that realistic when you're putting in. It is very immersive. It's just like it's hard to buy into the illusion that you're in VR.
Yeah, and it shows that they're working on not just the current headset, Oculus Go, but a handful of next generation headsets that could help improve that and get people more interested in VR. Last, our own Abrar Al-Hidi wrote about simulations using virtual patients to train healthcare professionals to be more empathetic and to tackle some tough conversations on topics like mental health. This is, of course, on a screen, but I could see how this could be useful if it was in VR.
I don't know. I don't feel empathetic towards like virtual reality, like simulations or anything like that. So I feel like it might have the opposite effect where you start looking at like real people as if, oh, I've done this in my simulation.
Oh, that's
like,
an interesting way of looking at it.
I don't know. I'm weird about that, but yeah, I don't know.
I'm glad you're not my doctor. If you want to read more about these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Thanks for listening.
All right, everybody, thanks as always for joining us in the recording of the audio podcast. I'll jump into the chat now, and yes, that's really me. Don't at me, bro. I'll find some good questions and comments to keep the conversation going, and in the meantime, Alfred and Ben, busy
Just to get on my point, though, like, I feel like it's weird if, like, the only, like, trauma or stress that you're dealing with is like when you're doing it in like a VR setting. I feel like you're like very desensitized to that at some point. It's a weird example, but like I think of somebody who if like their only interaction with like women is like VR like pornography or something like that, then
that's an interesting jump.
then
there.
it's just
Sure.
like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
I've heard
it's a very weird
such
jump. But
arguments. No, I know where that argument is, but taking it back to the healthcare professional perspective, I think a lot of doctors and healthcare professionals are accused of having lousy bedside manner, especially when they're giving people bad news. So providing those specific professionals with a little more training specifically directed around that, I think could absolutely be helpful. Whether doing it on a screen with virtual people, like a little software program, is actually going to help, I don't know.
I'm also curious when like doctors and medical professionals would even have the time to do this.
I don't know. They're always training. They're always doing stuff.
Yeah, but like, are doctors training in the same way that we trained, like for annual, like, you know what I mean, like those seminars?
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I don't
I'm not
know,
a
like-
doctor. I'm not sure. You're asking me questions I have no idea about. So yeah.
I'm usually all in favor of using technology to better healthcare, to better legitimate resources rather than just put silly new cameras in our pockets. This one just feels kind of like a swing and a miss, though. It seems to kind of like one step forward, two steps back, where I don't know if this is actually going to help. Further encouraging virtual interaction doesn't necessarily mean better one-on-one interpersonal
Yeah, I'm very
connections.
skeptical of somebody learning empathy through like virtual reality. That just doesn't really like.
I
jive with
just
me.
wanted to learn to love.
It's
That's
like
my
when-
Zuckerberg impression, by the
It's
way.
like when
good.
it's like when Nintendo had like Nintendogs or whatever, where it's like you took, or like Tamagotchi, where like you take
People
it's
love their Tamagotchi.
it's like taking care of
Dr.
a pet. I
Tamagotchi.
don't know. I just think it's
Paging Dr.
it's a very
Tamagotchi.
different thing than like having something like there in front of you.
People love their Sony dogs too.
Nintendogs.
No.
No,
Sony made the
the
dog.
what is it? Aibo?
Yeah.
They're called Aibo.
Oh, that
Yeah.
thing.
And Ibo's
Yeah, but
coming
that's
back.
like there in front of you. That's not
Yes.
like a digital thing.
That's
But
true.
it's also not real. You know that, right?
Yeah, maybe that's what they should do. Maybe instead of
Ibo is
VR,
real.
they should have robot patients crying and.
Whoa.
Now you're just getting into like those
Westworld.
creepy baby dolls that used to cry and wet themselves, and we're like,
Which you would give to high school students to
Yeah.
like teach them what it's like.
and
to
that
raise
didn't
a kid.
traumatize us at all.
I don't know. I never was in that class, but I do remember that from high school. That
Yeah.
there would be, the kids would get paired off, and then they have to take care of a kid, and it would start crying in the middle of class, and you have to push a button on its back to make it stop crying. Which
That's
now
how
that
it
I
works
have
in
kids-
real life.
Now that I have kids, I can tell you that button does not exist. Anyway, do we have questions? Or I wanted to pivot back to F8 because I was interested in asking you guys whether after 2 days of F8, whether you think Zuckerberg and co managed to get away from this whole Cambridge Analytica thing. Maybe they showed us enough shiny new things to.
I mean, they've gone away from it for a while now. I feel I think that the political pressure on them has kind of died down, but I also think that it's something that like looms in the background for them, like that will always like loom in the background for them. Like it's not like the focus now, but like people like that's like the undertone of like everything that I look at Facebook of now.
Yeah, I'm also pretty bummed out to hear that the Cambridge Analytica folks basically just renamed themselves and moved to a different company.
Yeah, it's called
Like you
Emmer
expected
Data now.
anything less.
It's true. But
mean-
it is unfortunate for users, and
When you exist as a POS, you will continue as a POS.
that's right.
Speaking of that, we'll take a question about the shutdown of Cambridge Analytica from DC147. Does anyone think that the shutdown of Cambridge Analytica, the problem is with this shutdown, the problem is actually over, or are we just waiting until the next company makes headlines? I mean, do you think they're actually going to try to better themselves, or are they just going to do a better job hiding it?
No,
You-
dude, data collection.
Wait, you're talking about Facebook specifically?
No. What's their new
Emmer Data.
Emmer Data?
Look, data collection.
Again, a terrible friggin' name.
Yeah, so is Cambridge Analytica. I mean, what are they going to also change it to? Like Oxford Statistics or something? Like it's
I
not.
actually like that name. Anyway, what were you saying?
They have a style.
Yeah, I mean, the point is that like data collection is a massive industry and it's here to stay, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. you have all these websites that you use for free, like Facebook and Google and Twitter, YouTube, which is owned by Google. The fact, and all that data is going somewhere, and they're using this to basically develop profiles on anybody at like essentially massive demographics on the internet. And there, that's how like advertisements get to you, like specifically to you. It's like, oh wow, when you see something that's like, oh, that's very specific to like what I just looked up like 2 hours ago. I don't know how this ad landed on. Like that's all like the data industry.
Well, yeah, the advertising is one thing. The other one is these political consulting firms that use this type of information to target either potential voters for your candidate or against your candidate to try to encourage or suppress votes one way or another, which is it's so important, I think, to really tell people about this, because it's something that's going on, and it's going on in like your social media feeds.
And the thing is with Cambridge Analytica, like what they were doing as a data analytical firm wasn't inherently wrong. I mean, like people are very quick to point out that the Obama campaign did the same thing in 2012. I think the big issue with Cambridge Analytica was that they misused it. Like they took it without telling people. So I mean, I'm sure that these companies, like all these other data companies, including Emerdata, are going to be doing the exact same thing. But they're either going to try much harder to not get caught, or they're actually going to just continue taking your data in like the legitimate way, which is still shady, but perfectly okay because they told you.
Yeah. Well put.
Shall we pivot back to virtual doctors?
Sure. Absolutely.
Hunter Monzon had some great input. I think it's good for the students in med school. Have you seen the Grey's Anatomy where all the interns freeze up and make huge mistakes? I have not seen Grey's Anatomy. However, I have watched Scrubs at least 11 times. Maybe it will prepare them better than throwing them straight into the fire. See, that's maybe applicable right there.
Yeah, I was actually, frankly, I was a little surprised that you guys were so down on this concept, because
I want to say down, just very cautious.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, especially with like healthcare tech, it's really important not to overpromise that kind of thing. I think we try to do that as much as we can on this podcast, to say like, hey, this is interesting, but let's not promise everybody the moon with this. It's not going to solve cancer, whatever. But any level of additional training, especially as it relates to empathy, I think there's just a lot of healthcare professionals don't do a lot of training related to that. At least that's generally the knock about that.
Point well taken.
Yeah.
Shall we talk a little bit about VR?
Sure. I wish Joan was here for this.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Joan and Scott.
Yes. Well, we already had Scott on yesterday.
Oh, that's right. He filled
Can't
his
have him
quota.
again.
Yes.
Okay. I'll
go get him right now.
I don't know how much I care about this innovation of the focal length crap with the VR, because I'm getting really strangely paranoid about finding myself in the Matrix, where the simulation has become too real. We've surpassed the uncanny valley. Like, I want to know I'm immersed in a virtual experience and not have any questions about the reality of it. Any feedback on that one?
I don't think they're anywhere near that type of situation. I mean, like I've seen some of like the higher level VR headsets, and those are kind of fun. And you get to mess around with them a bit, like the HTC Vive. I believe it was the HTC Vive where there was this like cool Mount Everest climb that I got to do, and you're like going over this shaky bridge and you're climbing up. Like it was cool, but like and the visuals I thought were really good for VR, but at no point was I just like, oh yeah, I'm definitely doing this.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take a really long time, if the robots are ever going to take over, to make us think that this is a simulation.
That's what they want you to think.
Right. And then
they've already taken over.
Then
this is already all just a simulation.
You red pill and end up in like this weird vat of goo and have to take like, that really long thing out of your mouth like Neo does.
And then eat that nasty oatmeal stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't they have better food? It doesn't make any sense.
We need to talk more about virtual doctors, I guess. A couple great points brought up in the chat from Matthew Datcher. I guess the idea is kind of like flight simulators for pilot training, so that's a very good analogy.
I've done a flight simulator before. When I was doing a story out of Louisville with UPS, I got to do a flight simulator, and I will tell you that it was way easier I'm sure, than actually trying to fly for real.
Well, they probably put you on like the novice setting with
Not
all,
only that,
with all
but
the
like
Game Genie codes in there.
the guy that had been a pilot for like 40 odd years was sitting right next to me, and I'm pretty sure he was like secretly working the controls so I wouldn't crash completely. But you know, it gave me at least like a very, very minor flavor of what it might be like, or what it's kind of like. It was, when you're flying, it's totally different than driving a car, where it's kind of like, working like a really big ship. Anything that you do, you have to anticipate and move things like, pretty slowly and carefully and deliberately. So like if I got even that little bit from a flight simulator, then, maybe doctors could get something out of this.
True. Josh Boyda also points out that I'm going to school to become a police officer. Congrats, sir. I feel that this technology will be applicable in law enforcement training as well. That's another good point, because there is a lot of interpersonal, especially in this modern day and age, sensitivity-wise, where more peer-to-peer training could be beneficial.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So, for sure.
I think that's interesting. Good points, everybody. Thanks for bringing those up.
Yeah.
We're probably just about out of time. Any closing thoughts for the week? We had a busy week. We had F8. Next week we got Googlio.
Is that happening next week?
God.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. All
Everything
right.
sucks.
Is that your official review?
We'll see. I'm definitely very interested to see if there's going to be more like Google Home news, because like I write so much about like Alexa and Google Assistant that if they make another announcement about some like interesting Google Home stuff, I think that could be kind of cool, because Facebook was rumored to be working on a smart speaker, but apparently they delayed that effort because of all the controversies for F8. So,
But we had time to
see.
work on dating profiles.
Yeah, definitely dating profiles.
I'm glad
Should
they
be
got their
really
priorities
exciting.
straight.
Sure.
All right. Thanks, everybody. That's going to wrap it up for the week. It's been a busy week, but it's nice to end on a nice, somber, thought-provoking episode for the weekend. And
Sure.
we'll be back with Googlio crap next week.
Sounds good to me. All right. I'll get us out of here. The 359 podcast is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, FeedBurner, Google Play Music, the Amazon Echo, and of course, CNET.com. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you again on Monday.
So.
Take care, everybody.